Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first workshop of Rise Up for 2024. um, I am Kate Rutter, and I'm sitting here in my chilly house. Um, and I'm going to talk to you about an organization that I work for that I hope will be of interest to you. And just what we practice, the practice of stories and storytelling to bring people together is a really easy tool for you to support each other in your family and to be there for your kids. So I want to thank Sandy for bringing me to Rise Up. We have a lot of overlapping interests in that we both are focused on equipping young people to be good leaders for the future, and through our narrative for storytelling exchanges and the learning resources and practices that we do, we build skills that young people can take into their lives now and into the future. I want to apologize in advance, or just right now. First of all, this is not going to be edited, so there will be mistakes, and please forgive me. Secondly, this would have been much better as an interactive experience. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you our interactive experience and welcome you to participate in them virtually for free or in person at your request. And I'll share more information about that. A little background with Rise Up. We have done a story exchange already with Rise Up through another one of our facilitators, Tom Bissonette, who used our story exchange as a tool to help parents and their kids think about their development. Asynchronous development was his focus. And we had a program at the public library. And this is just an example that Narrative 4 is a tool that you can use in whatever you're interested in. In the case of Tom, it was this very niche topic of how we all develop at different rates in different ways. And that topic was something that they could dive into through sharing stories about their personal experiences, what the kids were going through right now, and what parents went through when they were young. So let me share my screen so you can look at a slideshow, and I'll take you through more details about our organization. Okay, so Narrative 4 is it's a global organization that uses storytelling and the arts to foster connection and build community. And we create tools to teach compassion and develop strong leadership skills. We do this by partnering with schools and organizations who will then use our approaches in their work. And basically, we have the components of a story exchange, our artist network, and then learning resources you can use, and a model to bring the lessons that come out of the story into civic engagement. I want to spend a lot of time talking about the story exchange because that's really at the heart of what we do. The story exchange is an experience where we prepare people who come together to tell personal stories. So often we'll have prompts in advance where the participants will have a story ready. They will then pair up with someone else and tell their story to that person for a few minutes, and then listen to that other person's story, and then come back to the circle to tell their partner story in the first person. What's powerful about this experience of having the preparation and then the opportunity to be heard and to listen to another person and then to share that person's story to the group is that we enrich in people this focus on curiosity. So we're not listening to judge or to fix or to even comfort. We're just there to hear that person's story. And so that deep listening practice, we help people prepare for that before they do the listening, to talk about what are different ways of listening and what do we want to get out of this listening. And of course, all of us are imagining the stories that are told to us through the process. So these are some examples of prompts. We have pages and pages of prompts, but here's some. Tell us a story about your proudest moment. Tell a story about a time you witnessed or participated in an act of compassion. Tell a story that takes place in an environment that is special for you. So, prompts really do guide the experience. And we can craft those with you for a particular event or a particular topic that you want to explore together. Let me see if this link works. I'm going to take you now to our website and show you something. We are now offering free story exchanges online and training to become a facilitator. So if you want to facilitate these story exchange experiences, you can do the training in a live virtual training. It's 6 hours broken into 2 3-hour parts, or you go through at your own pace in a self-guided experience. So if you go to narrative4.com and look at this page on programs, you can link into totally free sessions where you can learn more about Narrative 4, learn more about the experience, do the actual story exchange yourself with people from all over the world, and then do the training if you want to. So I wanted to put that out front for those of you who are interested. Let's get back to our, see if I can get out of here. Let's do. Right. Okay, so here we are back at our presentation. And I wanted to tell a little story about myself to personalize this, because that's what we do at Narrative 4. Why am I doing this work? So here's me with my parents and my little sister. I grew up here in Chattanooga, and I had a pretty sheltered life on the back of Lookout Mountain when it was a rural area. I didn't have a lot of experience with people from other backgrounds than my own. And so when I got to college, I went as far away as I could possibly go by car, because back in those days, you can't really afford plane tickets. So I went to Ohio and I studied English, and they happened to have a study abroad program that was available for people on financial aid. And there was a culture of just exploring that option. So I did that, and I went on a Tibetan studies program. And this was really unique because I was living with refugees. I mean, they were taking care of me. So it was wonderful transformational experience for me to have met people from such different background who were dealing with much more difficult circumstances, and yet were so generous and caring. So after college, I joined the Peace Corps, and I taught English for 2 years in China. Totally different culture. But one thing I learned from that experience was that, we really are all the same. I mean, we're all human beings. And sometimes these cultural differences and just a lack of exposure to each other can make us think that people are not as similar to us as they actually are. So building bridges between people from different backgrounds became an interest of mine. So I came back to Chattanooga and I worked as a community organizer. And that led me into civic engagement. So going from understanding each other better to hearing about problems and creating and collaborating solutions together as a community. So I went to graduate school and I studied in India. And that was also the beginning of my kind of anthropological approach to capturing stories, but really just listening to people and learning from people. After graduate school, I went on to work in humanitarian aid contexts in Kosovo and here in Sierra Leone. I was doing project management, but still at the heart of what we did was creating opportunities for people to talk to each other, to listen to each other, and to create solutions together. When I was in Sudan, and in Jordan, these places where I was talking with people who had been through war and very difficult circumstances, it was my job to collect their stories, to listen to how the programs, in this case, Save the Children, had impacted their lives. And those experiences were so powerful for me and for the people that I was talking with, that I became interested in the power of story itself, that power of that experience of sharing. And I wanted to do more than write up a story that was going to go on a blog or in a report. Then I had kids. Or this is about parents. So yeah, we moved to Zimbabwe. We lived in Zimbabwe for 13 years, and I raised my 2 kids there. But I was still involved in stories. Here I am with a group of people where we did a story workshop. So many amazing stories in Zimbabwe. So that's where I learned about Narrative 4. Narrative 4 is a global organization. They work in Africa, and when I moved back to Chattanooga, here I am with my much older parents and children. I began just a year and a half ago to see what opportunities there could be to bring Narrative 4 into Chattanooga. Why? Again, it's about empathy, and Narrative 4 believes, and we know through research, that empathy or compassion is like a muscle that you can strengthen through exercise. And when we talk about empathy, there's different components. One of it is cognitive. You are, like when you're reading a book, you're imagining you're in that world. The other is emotional. So we're sharing feelings, it's more intuitive and automatic. Like when somebody tells a really sad story and you are feeling sad, you are crying, or you're laughing, right? These mirror neurons, we're actually embodying the experience. And these can then stimulate caring and appreciating of each other. So when we suspend judgment, when we become more interested in that person, more curious, then we can appreciate their humanity. And Christians call this brotherly love, Buddhists call this compassionate concern, but it is an attitude and a good feeling, and a kind of realization that we are family, that we're interconnected, that we're interdependent, which then inspires us to act. And the act can be as simple as demonstrating that you're really listening and that you care. It can be a kind word, a gesture, or it can be actions, and finding solutions for people who need help. So being better at empathizing can help us in so many issues with each other. We are social creatures, and a good leader needs to be able to connect with people in order to understand them and to respond appropriately, um, and to move our world in a better direction. As we've said, as I've said, um, the actual technique that we use of the story exchange, where you tell your story and then you listen and then you repeat someone's story, these practices are increasing our ability to empathize. But even more than that, these are the same practices that scientists say lead to happiness and well-being. The top 5 practices that lead to happiness and well-being: social connection. Well, 2 of them are about health and that kind of nutrition. But these 3 practices in the top 5 can be developed through the act of the story exchange. So, social connection, being present, and being other-oriented. I'm just going to glance at these resources so there's I don't know if you've heard about the move of positive psychology, but there was a professor, Laurie Santos, who has been teaching the most popular course in the history of Yale about the psychology and the good life, because even kids as successful as and privileged as these ones going to Yale were having and reporting increasing mental health issues. And these types of problems like isolation, depression, anxiety are reported more often now than they have been. And so we are on a mission to try to help kids to improve their mental health. Not only connecting with people, but connecting with people in um, different ways can be helpful. So there's deep connection with a friend or a partner, but even diverse connection. So another study out of Harvard Business School by Collins found that close and weak ties are important, and variety in the types of relationships that we have, the better. our story exchange is like a container that creates a structure so that it moves out of the way the normal barriers that prevent us from talking. Um, okay, I'll just keep going. Whoops, sorry. Yes, I mentioned the problem. These are the problems that people are complaining about. That are really getting in the way of their living fully. The solution is through balance, joy, meaning, focus. And how do we get to that? By investing time in relationships. And our experience in the story exchange is that it cultivates trust. It allows people to express gratitude, feel joy, model vulnerability, and these are nurturing. There are other ways of thinking about empathy. There's self-compassion and care, that we take care of ourselves. And when we do that, we have a greater ability to connect with others. And we're able to reach out and open up to build relationships. When we are listening, feeling, imagining, caring, we are learning. So it goes from self to relation. Then here at the community level, we have Ubuntu, which is an African concept, which is basically that there is no me without you, that we are interconnected. We're all in this together. Relationships are the building block to a community. And when we have feelings and empathy for ourselves, then we also have the ability to extend ourselves and have an attitude of responsibility or purpose to something beyond ourselves. What does this have to do with stories? When we do the inner work of thinking about our own personal stories, often we look at the stories of where we come from and the stories of our experiences, the things we've learned along the way, challenges we faced. In relationships, when we are hearing stories, then we feel more connected, more able to learn, and we have a role as a witness. When we witness another person's stories and learning, then we also make connections and that we have learned the same thing. We have shared insights, and that can be inspiring. It can help us collectively move in a particular direction. We are co-creating a better future together. And this is, what it looks like all together. You go from my story to your story to our story. The links that I shared in the beginning, if you just go to our website, will allow you to join a virtual story exchange for free. But you can also organize your own in-person story exchanges once you become a trained facilitator. And we have free training now online. I want to share with you a little bit about what's been going on in Chattanooga for the last year or so. We have story exchanges in schools. In some cases, that's one teacher working with one classroom. But we can also work with whole grade levels. That bottom picture is of the UTC summer orientation. So these are students that haven't even started at UTC. They came for 2 days to learn about what it's like to go to college. And we had an opportunity to do story exchanges with over 2,000 students. They were sharing personal stories with each other and hearing stories from these kids from all different backgrounds. Why was this important to UTC to do this? Because students say that building relationships with others at university is top of the list of what's important to them and for their well-being. And it's also an opportunity to expand your horizons and meet with people outside your neighborhood and to learn about them and value others. We also hosted an event at UTC similar to this one at William and Mary, where our founder, Colin McCann, he is a famous Irish writer, spoke about the power of story. We can do this for any large organization as an inspiring and unifying team building activity. At UTC, in addition to the summer orientation, we had the artist event where we had in the bottom picture, our founder, but also Ishmael Bea, who wrote about his experience as a child soldier in Sierra Leone. And then we brought in local writers to talk about their work as well. So that panel discussion happened. We also did small group faculty training. And those teachers now are bringing the story exchange into their different classes. We collaborated with UTC, and here there's a music instructor with a student leader, both of whom participated as facilitators in the summer orientation, talking about how positive that experience was for them on the radio. Yeah. So as I mentioned, we can use the story exchange on many different topics. And some of these we have developed prompts for because they're so popular, like identity, community, faith, the environment, art. These are areas that people often want to talk about together. But we have variations of the story exchange. It's not just a spoken story. We can use art to tell our story and to tell our partner's story, or dance or theater. We have interfaith and interschool experiences so that people get to know at a very personal level differences in their lives. Even field exchanges. We've had students from Kentucky go to New York, first doing story exchanges virtually. And this is actually one area that we're looking into. Hopefully we can do something like this in Chattanooga, but to foster safety in communities, we're nurturing relationships with young people and police officers. See, this is in the Bronx though. But what is at really the heart of what we do are the facilitators. So here, this was our first facilitator training in Chattanooga. And we've had a number of them. I just wanted to share some of the experiences. We have teachers, English teachers, music teachers, social issues, media, using the story exchange to help the students engage in the work, bringing their personal lives to really know how the learning in the class is relevant to their lives. It's also wonderful for student support and counseling to give students a real sense that they're being heard, that they're seen, that they're not alone, and to build those connections. So strengthening the social fabric of those communities. We work with organizations like Sister Cities. We've trained church leaders who have specific groups working on social issues. And so this is part of their preparing for the projects and how they're going to engage. writers who did writing workshops to take deep dives into character development. Show you some more pictures. Oh, here, for example, this was Sister Cities. Oops, sorry. Southward Literary Festival had us in 2 sessions. We brought authors to talk about their work, and then we had a story exchange with participants from the festival. And this was a really interesting story exchange that we did with Walker County. The Walker County Democrats wanted to have an open community events to Democrats and Republicans to focus on civil discourse. Like, how do we talk about the issues of our community in a civilized way? So it was really building community skills. And at the heart of it was listening, to just listen to each other's personal stories instead of arguing about divisive issues. And I love this picture because this is just, one pair at a story exchange, never met before. This is the joy that you see when you do a story exchange. People getting to learn about each other and opportunities that they otherwise never would have, and making connections that they can then build on to do their work in the future. So, as I've said, I'd love for you to visit the Narrative 4 website. Try it out. It's completely free. You could be in a story exchange with people from all over the world. And we can, if you've got my email, or you can reach me through Sandy. It's my email simple. It's kate@narrative4.com. If you want to request an in-person facilitated story exchange, I can do that for you. But then you can also become a trained facilitator and do it yourself. And we are now offering free training online. It's just 6 hours. So 3 hours one day, 3 hours another day. And they're offering them now, I think, on a monthly basis. So get in touch and find out what's going on here. And I'd love to meet you and hear your stories. Thanks so much.